They studied by the flicker of oil lamps. Their voices rose through the night, layered, urgent, tangled with centuries of memory. In two distant lands, two communities poured their hearts into one sacred mission, to preserve the oral soul of Judaism. And they succeeded. Twice. What emerged was not one Talmud, but two. Two monumental efforts to record the heartbeat of Jewish law and thought. Two windows into two worlds, divided by geography, history, and fate. The Jerusalem Talmud, born in the ashes of the land of Israel. The Babylonian Talmud, shaped in the shadows of exile. For centuries, scholars have debated, what are the real differences between these two Talmuds? Why does one dominate Jewish life today while the other remains largely unknown? And what can these twin treasures reveal about the soul of a people? Let's begin in the land where it all started. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, Jewish life in the land of Israel was shattered. Jerusalem was in ruins, the priesthood dissolved. And yet, out of this devastation, the rabbis regrouped. In towns like Tiberias, Sepphoris, and Caesarea, they built a new center of learning, grounded not in sacrifice, but in study. Here, in this fragile rebirth, the sages compiled the Mishnah around 200 CE, an ambitious distillation of centuries of oral law. But the Mishnah raised more questions than it answered. So rabbis across the Galilee and the coastal plains began to discuss, interpret, and analyze the Mishnah's teachings. These passionate, often chaotic conversations were eventually recorded in a text now known as the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. But here's the twist. It wasn't actually written in Jerusalem. The term Jerusalem Talmud is a bit of a misnomer. In truth, it was compiled in towns far north of the Holy City, most likely in Tiberias, the last stronghold of Jewish scholarship in the land of Israel. Why the name Jerusalem Talmud, then? Probably because Jerusalem remained the symbolic center of Jewish longing even after its destruction. Now travel east. Far beyond the Roman Empire, across the vast Mesopotamian plains, lies Babylon, modern-day Iraq. There, a thriving Jewish community had existed since the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE. By the 3rd century CE, Babylon had become the intellectual superpower of the Jewish world. And in the great academies of Sura, Pumbedita, and Nehardea, another wave of scholars took on the Mishnah. But this time, the discussions were deeper, broader, and longer-lasting, stretching over 300 years. The result? The Babylonian Talmud, or Talmud Bavli, a sprawling, intricate masterpiece unlike anything the Jewish world had ever seen. So now we have two Talmuds, both built around the Mishnah, both recording rabbinic debates and interpretations, both sacred. But make no mistake, they are not the same. The first difference is structure. The Jerusalem Talmud is terse, often cryptic. It moves fast, sometimes too fast. Discussions begin abruptly and end without warning. Many passages are fragmented, possibly due to rushed redaction or even political instability. Why rushed? Because by the 4th century, the land of Israel was under heavy Christian control. Jewish academies were under pressure. The project may have been cut short, leaving the Yerushalmi feeling at times like an unfinished symphony. In contrast, the Babylonian Talmud is expansive. Dialogues are longer. Arguments unfold over pages. It's like listening to a great symphony. Themes introduced, developed, challenged, resolved, then returned to in unexpected ways. The second difference is language. The Jerusalem Talmud is written primarily in Western Aramaic, closer to the spoken language of the land of Israel. The Babylonian Talmud uses Eastern Aramaic, heavily influenced by Persian vocabulary and local dialects. To the trained eye or ear, the difference is unmistakable. Third is content. The Babylonian Talmud includes many more tractates, especially those dealing with civil and ritual law. The Babylonian sages had more freedom and time, and their academies endured centuries longer than those in Israel. This allowed for the development of detailed legal reasoning, what later became the foundation of Jewish halakha. The Jerusalem Talmud, on the other hand, offers a window into a different world, more connected to the land, the agriculture, the ancient traditions of temple worship. It's earthier, rawer, and at times more spiritual in tone. Then there's methodology. The Babylonian Talmud loves complexity. It often introduces objections to its own statements. It creates hypothetical situations to test legal logic. It doubles back on its conclusions and sometimes leaves the reader suspended in ambiguity. This isn't sloppiness, it's philosophy. The Babylonian sages were building a system of thinking. They weren't just preserving rulings. They were teaching future generations how to think like a rabbi. The Jerusalem Talmud, by contrast, is more direct. It tells you what happened, who said what, and it often moves on without overanalyzing. In some ways, this makes it more authentic, closer to the source, but less accessible to those looking for depth and structure. And then, of course, comes the emotional question. Why did the Babylonian Talmud become the central text of Jewish life, while the Jerusalem Talmud faded into relative obscurity? The answer tragically lies in history. After the 5th century, Jewish life in the land of Israel declined sharply. Byzantine persecution increased. The great academies closed. Fewer copies of the Jerusalem Talmud were made. Some portions were lost entirely. But Babylon thrived. Its academies flourished well into the Islamic era. The Talmud Bavli was taught, copied, commented upon, revered. It spread across North Africa, Spain, Europe, and eventually the world. By the Middle Ages, Jewish communities from Baghdad to Berlin were united not by geography, but by the pages of the Babylonian Talmud. And yet, the Jerusalem Talmud never truly died. In recent decades, scholars and spiritual seekers have returned to it, drawn by its clarity, its regional flavor, and its connection to the land of Israel. New editions have been published, commentaries written. Yeshivot in Israel now teach both Talmuds side by side. As one scholar put it, the Babylonian Talmud teaches how to live in exile. The Jerusalem Talmud teaches how to return home. Perhaps that's the most profound difference of all. 2 Talmuds, 2 voices. 2 expressions of one ancient soul, one forged under the sun of Galilee, the other tempered by the fire of exile. Both echoing the eternal cry, what does the Torah demand of us, and how do we live it, here, now, wherever we are? The conversation continues. The pages are still turning, and the questions, like the people who ask them, are still alive.